Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Humor in the C-Suite. I am so excited. Look, last week we did a best of, and it worked out so well. And I realized that there are so many little amazing nuggets in all these episodes that we decided to do one more. I hope you enjoy it. They really are the best of, and there's so much great advice and insight and funny moments that you guys are just going to love. So enjoy this episode of Humor in the C-Suite.
I do confess there are times when I have a hard time finding the humor in a situation.
Yeah.
Like if I'm really stressed out, I'm trying to get somewhere in a hurry, things aren't working out. Usually it has to do with stress and time. Like I'm running late for something. Later in the day, I always say, you could have just taken a moment to think about how absurd this is, that you're trying to load the groceries from Costco into your car and you're running late for something and the bag splits and the cantaloupe rolls on this. It's kind of funny, but in the moment it is not at all
It
funny,
is.
right?
Absolutely.
So I'm always trying to, it's going to happen again. I'm always trying to remind myself, can you try to see some of the humor in this? Or in 10 minutes, look back on this and look at the humor in this.
Do you find bringing people back to the workplace and retaining people of a younger generation? Do you find a lot of humor and team building really helps them?
Absolutely. We're dealing with an isolationist society, especially post-pandemic. We're dealing with an industry that I had to learn how to pitch in
Yeah.
this box instead of shaking hands, getting close to somebody, letting them smell my nice perfume. But winning them over personally and shaking hands is more humane. That's what we do. We're social. So when we had to pivot, in 2020, suddenly it was, how am I going to be able to win over business with people in a box?
Yeah.
And I better be stellar. I better, it doesn't matter what my background, it's what's coming out of my mouth in that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was pivotal. And so young people needed that because they needed to, I believe that it's easy to just sort of squirm at home and go into your own little cocoon. But at the end of it, we're social beings. We have to be out there. We
Yeah.
have to connect. And we're in the business of doing that. So we can't be hypocritical.
And in terms of the C-suiters, executives, leadership managers, I
Yeah.
think one thing that leaders can do better is just give the compliment and then let it be. And then, maybe take 2 days. And even if you have something where you want the person to do better in, or you want them to improve, you don't need to stack them and just, I'm going to focus on the good first, and then I'm going to tell you the bad. My old business partner used to always say something to the effect of, do you want the good news first and the bad news second? And it's like, I don't care, because if you're going to tell me one way or another, just tell me. Don't give me this game of good news, bad news. Just so, I'm very cognizant of not stacking or not trying to be strategic. Just be curious about me. And then next week you can tell me what you want me to improve on.
And I'd rather be, a small fish in a big pond and just learning everything. And I think that's, humble, I guess.
That's
Or
exactly
not
what I was
now
gonna
that I
say.
just said it.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah, I know you're bragging about your own humility, but but it is humility, Kate. It is humility. Saying I don't know, but I will find out. That
Yeah.
is one of the signs of humility. Is in academia, if you want to talk fancy, it's called intellectual humility, which is knowing what you don't know.
Yeah.
How important is it to know what we don't know in every aspect of life, and then asking questions and figuring it out?
So,
Yeah.
if you set the tone as a leader that either I'm going to make fun of my own self a little bit or be light about things, I think that gives people permission to do the same. And what is a leader? You're leading people. So, leading people to know that it's okay to be funny and have fun. If you set that tone, and if you don't do it, then they're going to have the tone of okay, we can't have fun around here. We can't joke around. I mean, so I really do think as a leader, we do set the tone in that.
I love that. And in setting the tone also for people to come with you with a problem and knowing it's okay.
Absolutely.
Do you think humor really enhances your collaboration with people?
I do. I think what it does is it breaks down barriers and walls. And so that, if you can throw an idea out there that's so terrible and then laugh at it, then someone else isn't scared to throw an idea out there too. Right. And, and talk about it and be open. And when you open yourself in your mind, knowing that it's okay, more ideas, better ideas come, the creativity comes. So I think that's so, so important.
I really found that if I can incorporate some humor into an economics presentation, boy, does that change the formula for the audience. Because a lot of people on the topic of economics, they're a bit intimidated by it. They, for whatever reason, they feel that I don't understand economics, I don't understand financial things. But if I can use some humor, it really brings down the fear level and it helps sort of just disarm people and it helps them be able to understand what I'm talking about. So I was always a big advocate of using humor, especially humorous images. And I become early on in sort of my economics presentation career. I dropped the charts and graphs. I just decided those don't have any. They ain't got no space in a presentation. They're okay if you want to do some handouts for people. But if you are showing slides in a big conference room to people, charts and graphs are the kiss of death. It is like filling the room full of ether. You're going to kill them. Instead, use some image, and particularly a funny or humorous image, and tell some. Not that I'm up there as a comic, but I can
No.
use some humor to sort of relate what's going on. So that's primarily, I think, how I've used humor is as an economist in my presentations.
We have to be that magnet, is my point, Kate.
Yeah.
If I'm not the spark that comes to the room, then what am I waiting for?
Yeah.
I'm just latching on. And listen, some people are introverted. Some people are super extroverted, but you have to have some kind of heartbeat that's warm, that brings something to the table that people will say, they're a good soul. I'll spend some time with them. That's how we build bridges.
Yeah.
When you infuse some humor and it's funny and it's not racist shit, like you're funny,
Yeah.
then it's going to be great.
And I find with like the next generation coming up through, whatever industry you're in, you being real estate, when they see someone like you in the office, they feel like they can be their authentic selves. And I think that's so important. Right.
I like that young people feel comfortable to come in to speak to me, to ask me questions about what
Yes.
did you do in this and what would you do and what do you think, and whether they take my advice or not is regardless. They came in, they asked. So you also have to park your ego at the door sometimes and
Yeah.
just say, they asked. That doesn't mean they're always going to buy. So just be that
Yeah.
person that's offering time in a meaningful way that's useful, and it comes back in spades. I really believe that. Like,
The way that I would think about humor here was always around like how do I talk about anything but business probably for the first
Yes.
10, 15 minutes of the conversation. And of course, like if you can use humor to just like break the traditional way of
Ice.
jumping right in.
Yes.
Yeah, break the ice and build
Yeah.
some of that connection. So absolutely. And I think that's how I view a lot of my like sales calls today in the work that I do, but also in the last 15 years of my life of trying to sell. And, funny enough, now that we're talking about it, I would spend a lot of time when I go on these trips to at the factories and visiting different factories of where all these products were made, from bedding, blankets, fitness equipment, drinkware, home goods. Like we made a lot of products across a lot of different categories. And in China, in the factories, the way that most factories want to actually conduct business is they don't want to talk about business when you first get there. And a lot of people go in and they jump right into business. And traditionally speaking, a lot of like Westerners, they want to just like squeeze the factory to make whatever it is they're making for the lowest price. And
Yeah.
right away, if you lead that way, factory owners will recognize like you just mean business and you don't care about them, their culture, their people. And it actually it's a disadvantage, not obviously across the board, but traditionally speaking, that's not the way that at the factory level that business should be conducted. So I was very strategic in regards to when I first go in and meet these factories, I try to build a genuine, authentic relationship with the factory owner, the manager, the sales rep. And I would try to connect by sharing about our culture and their culture and bridging the gap. And eventually we talk about business and the products we're making, but it was so important to build an authentic connection and use like our cultures as a means of connection as opposed to just jumping right into business. And one more thing I want to say, like there was so much humor in the food because the food was so different.
Yeah.
And a lot of Westerners too. I'd say maybe they lose some respect from some of the factory owners because when you go to the factory, they say, get me McDonald's or get me the American food. And they don't want to, there's no like, the factory owners appreciate when you take that curiosity into their world and their way of life. So I would say bring me to the lunch spot that you eat lunch at every day. I want the real experience. And
I love that.
and that would create I have so many stories of the foods that I ate that in the moment I was like, I have no idea what the heck I'm eating, but this is going to be interesting. And they loved it. Like they would love the reaction. And
Yeah.
I would try to speak some broken Chinese as a means of just like breaking the ice and throwing some humor. They would love when I would say like, thank you, or this is delicious, or trying to say I love this food, but I was probably really saying like I love you very much, something like that. But they loved all of that.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a lot that to be learned at like the C-suite level around being curious about the people who we work with, despite so often when we work here, like in the States, we think that the people who we're working with are like just like us, but we need to be a little bit curious about the people we work with and where they come from and what they like. And I think that helps build, greater depth and connection with the people who we work with.
That is such great advice. And I find like it's so perfect to think of, when we talk about humor in the C-suite, it's not about telling jokes. It's really about how can I connect with these people, and food and just cultural differences, I think is such a great way to do that.
But to tell you the truth, Kate, I think at one point in time in my career, I kind of like got a little bit too serious for my own sake and kind of like started taking myself too seriously. For whatever reason, I thought that's the way to succeed and to be professional and to be taken seriously. So maybe when I first started teaching, I was a little bit, kind of like too stuck up and too serious. And I realized that I wasn't having fun. I wasn't enjoying myself. The students were not enjoying having me. And slowly over time I started integrating humor into the classroom. Started showing clips of The Office, for example, the TV show The Office. I said
Perfect. Yeah.
it's perfect for what I teach. It's the perfect way to show how not to lead and how
Yeah.
not to run a company. And the more I did that,
Yeah.
the more I started becoming more relaxed and started becoming more myself, and kind of like integrated that part of my personality into the work that I do every day.
I really that is so powerful to me, because if I could say anything to my 20-year-old self, it would be don't take yourself so seriously. And I think whenever we're trying, and especially for all, the people starting off in the corporate world and and climbing that ladder, so to speak, I think it's really important for them to be able to bring their authentic selves to work. And I think just having that humor in leadership really helps that. Do you have any tips you could share with people who are, have their own businesses or are leaders in the C-suite that you can sort of impart on them?
I think it really goes back to, you don't like, people are like, oh, Brittany, do you think you're funny? I would say, I don't think I'm funny. Like I said, I think I'm light. And so frame it in your mind of how it works best for you. I think it's scary if I'm not funny every day, or, you don't have to be funny every day. But I think if you can laugh at yourself, if you can just have that openness for others to, feel comfortable sharing things with you or having a laugh with you, I just think they're going to work harder for you. They're going to like to be there, and people are like to be at work. They perform better. And so I just think it all kind of ties together. And so many times people are like, oh, I need to give them more money, or I need to give them this or that. And sometimes it's just happiness. It's that good feeling. And it doesn't have to be something that you go buy them. It can just be something as simple as them enjoying what they do because you as a leader make it enjoyable for them.